Welcome and thank you for joining us again for another broadcast of Evening Review. My name is Okito Craig, and this evening in studio with me is Philippe Talavera, the director of OYO. OYO stands for?
Ombetja Yehinga Organisation.
Welcome, Philippe. How are you, sir?
Good, and you?
Good. Director not only of the organization, but you also direct films. Let's start off with your success with that remarkable film that you've created, Lucas.
Yeah, thanks. So Lucas is a film we produced last year. It was produced with support from the German embassy. Okay. Actually, the shooting was in 2023, but the release was last year in 2024. It's a story about street kids. Okay. So what we did is that we interviewed some children living and working in the streets or having lived in the streets in Windhoek, yes, to get their testimonies, to find out who they were, where they were coming from, what was their experiences in the streets. And based on those testimonies, Mikiros Garoes wrote the script. She did a brilliant job, I think. And the script follows the story of Lucas, a young boy of 12 who, because of what is happening at his home, ended up being in the streets. It's a fiction, but it's a fiction based on real stories. Yes. And Lucas was used quite extensively last year in schools and in communities to raise a little bit of awareness about street kids. Because, you know, when you see a street kid, sometimes your first reaction is, oh God, they will again ask me $1. Yes. Or then it is, should I give $1 or should I not give $1? We don't always know how to approach them, but we sort of forget that there is a story behind. Yes. No child wants to be in the streets.
Yes.
And I think Lucas sort of gave a little bit of a voice to those street kids. And I know that for myself, whenever now I see someone begging at the robot or in the streets, my first thought is, okay, what is your story? Yes. You know, how did you end up here? And so Lucas, I think, has this element that is quite emotional because we can relate to that kid. And it has had quite a bit of a success locally, but also internationally. Yes. The latest one is that we've been nominated for the AMVC Award in Nigeria and Africa Magic's Viewers Award Choice. Yes. I think I said it in the wrong way. I think it's Africa Magic Viewer Choice Award in Nigeria in the best indigenous language, because it's not really in English. It's a mixture between Kwekwe-Govap and Afrikaans.
Very interesting.
So yeah, we are very excited about it. Previously, it has won the best youngest African actor for the little kid Alejandro, who is playing Lucas. Yes. That was also very exciting. Yes. It has won best movie in Mauritius. So yeah, it has been well received internationally, particularly in Africa, I have to say.
Excellent.
And that's something that I'm very proud of.
I can imagine. Tell us a bit about this young actor who has shot to fame now, Alejandro.
Sure. So as much as we did the script with real kids living in the street, yes, we didn't feel it to be appropriate to have them as actors. Also, it's quite difficult from a logistic point of view. So we did auditions in schools. And we wanted to get kids a chance to act and a chance to experience being on a set and on a movie. So we visited various schools and, you know, we auditioned a lot of kids. And some of the kids were better than others. Yeah. And then from selection to selection, we found Alejandro. Back in the day when we did the shooting, it was in grade 6. That was actually quite amazing because there was a lot of scenes, a lot of lines to learn. And I think this kid did amazing. And he was very involved in the story. He really wanted to tell the best story possible. I think he loved the experience. And he really gave his all to the shooting, which was quite fascinating to see.
It's incredible. But also the story you are telling is one that really needs telling. But you're quite an old hand at doing that, especially with your organization. Tell us a bit more about OYO and how it started and what its purpose is.
Sure. So as a bigger organization, not just for the film, as a bigger organization, our objective is to use art to create a social awareness. Okay. So we have different projects from dance to film to comic books or publications or photo exhibitions. We use different medium. And the idea of using different medium is that we can go back several times to the same schools, talking about the same topic, but not repeating ourselves. Yes. And you know, kids get very bored very quickly. So it's more exciting one day you go and see a dance, and then the next day you go and see a movie, and then the following day you read a magazine. So it keeps the interest going.
Yes.
It's reinforcing the message without being boring in any way. And we use art because we believe that the arts appeal to your emotions. Training, conferences, workshops, they appeal to your intellect.
Yes.
You reflect on figures, you reflect on something that is presented to you. But it's not emotional, it's quite detached.
Yes,
if you see a percentage, there's so many street kids in Windhoek. Okay, there's so many street kids in Windhoek, so what? But if you see a movie, or if you see a dance piece, or a photo exhibition, it touches you.
Yes.
And then if it touches you, you're more likely to react and to pay attention to the topic, but also ultimately to change your attitude or to change your behavior.
Yes. And so importantly to remember that it's a person.
Exactly. In the case of Lucas, it's a child that is in the street, and that could be anybody's child, really. We did other movies also with a social meaning, like Kukuri was about child marriage. We tend to forget that in some places in Namibia, we still have traditional marriages, and we still have kids under 18 that are traditionally getting married. So the idea of Kukuri was to give a voice to those kids who are 15, 16, and sort of forced under the banner of it's my culture, it's my tradition to be married. We did Kapana about LGBTQI plus rights at a time when most of those rights were still not met. We try to give a voice to people, and we try to remind people that it's not a street kid, it's a person. It's not just a gay or lesbian, it's a person. It's not just a married child, it's a person. And I think once we put that into perspective, people react differently.
Yes. And it's so important to use the arts to educate and inform and to change people's minds. Tell us a bit more about the various other shows that you've got going on, dance. And that's the one that always sticks in my head. But I'm sure you guys are always very busy.
Yeah, well, this year we've been a little bit less busy because we lost some of our funding because of the global politics. But overall, we are trying to be as busy as possible. And beside the film, I think what OYO is mostly well known for is our dance troupe. We got the first and still up to date only dance troupe in Namibia that is employing dancers as full-time performers.
Wow.
And we create with them pieces of what we call physical theater. So it's really the telling of a story, but with no word. So it's like a piece of theater, if you want, but instead of people talking, they are moving. And through the movement, we still understand the conversations and what is going on, but it does not use any language. So you can show it from Zambezi to Luderitz. Everybody will understand what is happening. Exactly. Dance is fairly universal. And again, the idea is the same, is to tell stories that will touch people, like we did Neville on a boy child being abused by his stepfather. We have another party with Helen about the consequence of abusing alcohol and jealousy. So we have different pieces, and they all talk about a special issue. But again, the idea is to put the audience in the shoes of the character. And when we present the dance, we don't just go and dance, but we then have a discussion with the audience. And we often ask them, okay, if you were in the shoes of this character, would you have done the same? Would you have done something different? What else could you have done? Or what differently? How differently could you have done it? So we also engage the audience, that they just are not a passive recipient, but they actually are an active audience.
Okay. Now that's very interesting. That's very interesting. Your organization has been around for some years, and you've grown. What's the size now, and when did you start?
We started in 2001 as a small project in Kunene. And 2002 was still a small project in Kunene, but then we registered as an NGO at the end of 2002. So officially as an NGO, our birthday is March 2003. That's when we officially launched the NGO. So it's over 20 years. Now it's 22 years.
And happy birthday, it's March.
Yes, it's March, exactly. So we celebrated the 20th birthday, but 22. I think we'll have to wait for 25 now to have the next celebration. So we have been around for 22 years. It has changed of course, we had different projects over the years. For example, in the beginning, we didn't do any dance.
Yeah.
The dance started in 2008. The film started more in 2011. So different medium appeared at different time, depending on the need and depending on the projects we were having. Also, the topic has evolved. Back in the day, we exclusively work on HIV and AIDS. I mean, back in the early 2000s, it was a huge topic. Now we also work on gender-based violence, teenage pregnancy, human rights. So we have sort of expanded our vocabulary.
Yeah.
Size-wise, we are still fairly small NGOs by Namibian standard or international standard. We are less than 20 working for OU, but we want to keep it that way because we prefer to do a good job instead of trying to do too much and then diluting the work we do. So we believe it's better to have an impact, even if we can't go everywhere, rather than trying to go everywhere and spreading yourself too thin.
Yes, and diluting the message.
Exactly.
Yeah. Have you found that Namibia is fertile soil for creative expression in general, or has it taken a lot of prompting and nudging to develop the culture?
No, I think there is a huge amount of talent in Namibia, definitively. There's maybe not a culture of cultivating this talent. Like, for example, the little boy Alejandro, who is playing Lucas, is an amazing child actor, but there's not really a platform for him to develop his talent in Namibia because there's not really a school for child actor. There's not many opportunities. So we don't necessarily look after our talent enough in Namibia, which is a pity because the talent is there. I think there's still a reluctance from some people to pay for the art. And I can understand if you don't have that much money, you first pay for a roof over your head and food on your table. So the art, going to a performance or buying an art piece might come last on your list of priorities. But overall, I think there could be more done to develop the talent and promote the creative industry in Namibia. But the talent is there, definitively.
On that note, Philippe, let's take a quick break, for a commercial, and then we'll be right back. So please stay with us. This is the Evening Review. And welcome back to Evening Review. My name is Ogito Greg. I'm your host tonight. And in studio with me is Philippe Talavera. Philippe, thank you very much. We were just discussing, and you were saying that Namibia has the talent, but we don't really have the culture of growing our talent. And I think that's an important message. I just wanted to get your opinion. Just recently, while we were having official events in honor of our late founding president, and even before that, in honor of our just previous president, there was a question of musicians not being paid. Do you think that it is we should focus more on the privilege of being able to serve on such an occasion, or do you think that local musicians and artists in general have a valid point to make in terms of saying they are delivering a service and they need to get paid for that service because it doesn't come without its own costs?
Yeah, I think for me there's two answers to this question. I think fundamentally, in many countries, artists are real jobs. Whether you are a musician or an actor or a director or a gaffer, you live off your art. And the art that you do provide for your needs. So with your acting gigs or your dancing gigs or the paintings that you will sell, you can put a roof over your head, you can feed yourself and your family, you can have a normal life. You don't ask a doctor to perform a surgery for free. You not often ask a lawyer to defend you for free. They won't. So unless it's something pro bono, but that's not the majority of the cases. So overall, I think we should respect every profession, including artists. And for the service you deliver, you should get a payment. Now, if you achieve that, if you achieve to be self-sustaining, if you are working enough as an artist to meet your needs, Then from time to time, giving something back to the community is right.
Yes, yes.
I'm completely believing in giving back from time to time. So I think if there is an opportunity like a state funeral or a specific event, and then you can give something back, you should do it.
Yes.
But it's not fair to ask someone who can't pay for a roof over his head to give something back.
Yes, yes.
I think first, let's make sure that we cover the living expenses of the artist,
Yes.
and then we can ask them to give things back for free.
Yes.
I think it's important to give back, but in order to give back, you need to be privileged enough that you can afford it, basically.
Yes, to have something to give back.
Exactly.
Do you think it's a fair assumption to make that as a consequence of our current culture and attitude towards arts, that we may be losing the best of our people who would leave to go to places where their art can feed them?
Sure. I mean, very often you will hear people asking, okay, you're an actor, but what is your real job? You know,
yes.
Or you're a dancer, but what is your real job? So for a lot of people, it's a hobby, it's not a job. And that's the danger, because of course it can be a hobby. Everybody can dance, everybody can sing, everybody can act, but not everybody can be a dancer or can be a singer or can be an actor or a painter. So it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of dedication to be an artist. And if you cannot allocate the time to your art, then yes, it remains a hobby.
Yes,
yes, you do that after 5, once a week as a hobby, but you will never become as good as someone who is doing it 5 or 6 days a week as a real profession.
Yes, yes.
And I think that's where we lose out, because sometimes when you look at artists from other countries, you think, oh, they're actually better than our artists. But of course, they work 5 or 6 days a week.
Yes,
so obviously, they have more exposure, they have more experience, they spend more time learning and trying things than our artists, who can allocate 4 or 5 hours a week on their craft. So you can't compare the two. And in that sense, I agree with you. We are losing on some talent because they don't develop as far as they could develop if they had the opportunity of being full-time artists.
Yes, yes. Your organization has been busy for a long time, and you did mention it earlier, but I'd like to return to that. The difficulty of keeping a non-governmental organization running in the current situation in Namibia. Could you expand a little bit and tell us how it was and how it's changed?
Sure. I mean, by definition, a non-for-profit organization does not make profit.
Yes.
I mean, that's why we are non-for-profit. We are not like a business. We don't sell something to make money. We actually often request grants or funding from institutions, and we spend that money to achieve a certain goal. So we are not here to make money, and that's a very different spirit than the private sector. But because we are not here to make money, we rely on grants or we rely on funding from various institutions. And unfortunately, most of the funding comes from outside the country. There's very little funding from Namibia. There's very little funding directly from government for NGOs, or very little funding even from the private sector to NGOs. Yes. So we rely on international donors, whether it is embassies or international institutions. So when those embassies or institutions change policies or priorities, then obviously the funding landscape changes, which is what is happening currently. We all know about USAID funding having been frozen. So that's a decision that, of course, the country can take because it is their money, but it has got a ripple effect on everybody else. So it's difficult to be sustainable. There's always a question, can NGOs be sustainable? I mean, because we don't make our own money, it's very, very difficult to become sustainable. Unless we start thinking more like a business. But then are we still an NGO? Are we still a philanthropic organization if we behave like a business? Those are interesting discussions. I don't have the answers. But the truth is that in Namibia, NGOs are not sustainable. They are depending on funding. Sometimes the funding comes with condition. So we can't always do what we would like to do because sometimes we have to tick some boxes. But oftentimes the funding is geared towards a cause that is close to what we would like to do anyway. So that works.
Yeah, I see. I see. No, the reason I'm asking is because there've been lots of NGOs that have been closing their doors recently, and the question that comes to my mind is the work that NGOs in Namibia do. Should we be expecting government to do that work? Are they able to? Is there somebody else who should be filling that gap, or are we reliant on NGOs? Are they the only practical vehicle to do the kind of work like Oyo does?
No, we are not the only kind of vehicle, but I think all over the world, you've got governments in various countries, but it's also important to have a non-governmental voice. Because of course government goes into a certain direction based on the political party that is appointed, based on their priorities, but it's important to have sort of other voices, voices of people that may not be heard otherwise, voices of people that may disagree with some decision that government is doing. And disagreeing is not a bad thing. Sometimes you need the disagreement to keep the discussion going on some things. There is sometimes a bit of fear from government that NGOs don't agree with us, they are against us. Not agreeing doesn't mean being against. It means voicing the voice of other people that also belong to the community, that may not think like the majority, but that also have valid points and expectations from the government. So NGOs' work is sort of complementing the work of ministries. If you take, for example, the Ministry of Education, obviously the main focus of teachers is on teaching the curriculum, because that's ultimately how their targets will be reached and how their achievement will be measured. They are not necessarily there to talk about teenage pregnancy or to find food for a child that doesn't have food at home. Is not the main mandate of a teacher. So it's good to have an NGO that can then complement. The NGO will not teach mathematics or will not teach history. That's not the work of the NGO. But the NGO can supplement some of the work that a teacher might not have the time to do because the teacher is focusing on what he or she is paid for
to do.
Same with the Ministry of Health, same with the various ministries, environment and tourism, for example. They have mandate, they have targets to achieve, but there's other elements that they might not be able to focus on that can be complemented by NGOs. Excellent. So I very much see the work of NGOs as complementing the work of government, and occasionally as telling government there's other voices there as well. Like currently, street kids are nobody's priority. So what we are trying to say is, okay, there should become someone priority. There are also Namibian children. So if Ministry of Gender says the Ministry of Education problem, and Ministry of Education says the Ministry of Health problem, and Ministry of Health says this other Ministry problem, then nobody is looking at the issue. So sometimes you also need someone to say, okay, so now let's sit down and let's reflect on that. Someone has to look into that issue.
I agree. Philip, we don't have much time left, and I think this issue brings us back to Lucas. Let's just finish with that. When are you guys going to Nigeria, and what's happening next?
Okay, to be honest, I know that the event is in May. I think it's on the 10th of May. I've got no idea what the organizers have planned, so I don't know when we are going. I do hope we are going, especially because Lucas is not the only Namibian movie selected. We are 3 Namibian movies selected this year. I think that's the first time there's 3 Namibian movies selected.
Wow, awesome.
So that's very awesome. I mean, coming back to your question about talent, there is talent in Namibia. We have 3 movies at the AMVC award. Skeleton Coast is also nominated. And Valvis Tale by Tim Upschlo is also nominated. So I think it's quite exciting, and I do hope we will have enough Namibian going because it's really exciting for the country, I think. There has been Namibian movies selected in previous year, including Salute and Kukuri, but it was always 1 Namibian movie. So I think this time having 3 Namibian movie, it's a lot of proud, I think, for the country. So I do hope we will get to go there. It is quite an interesting award ceremony. I've been there once in 2019, so I really hope I can have a chance to be there again. It's really where you see the best of the African, cinema, from the actors to the directors. It's vibrant, exciting, and Nigeria knows how to celebrate movies.
Awesome.
There's a Nollywood is there for a reason, but they really are keen on movies, and they really know how to have red carpet events and massive events. So I really look forward to that.
Excellent.
And I really hope that some of the Namibian movie will win, whether it is us or the other ones. I really hope they will bring back some trophies.
We will all keep our fingers crossed and hold our thumbs and wish you all the best, and look for every opportunity so that we can also watch those incredible movies. But for now, that's enough for Evening Review. Our time is up. For you out there who've joined us, thank you so much. Tomorrow will be another evening and another Evening Review. Till then, good night.